Hello, and welcome to the Come to Your Senses podcast. I'm your host, embodiment-based coach, Mary Lofgren. Here, we explore how to live bravely and beautifully through a lifestyle of embodiment. You'll hear gems to empower you around mindset, mindfulness, somatic psychology, and neuroscience, as well as beauty, food, style, and the art of slow living to meet your soul through the senses. I am so happy that you're here. Let's begin. Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's episode. So today's episode is titled Balm for the Depressed Mind. Our themes here on the podcast revolve around pleasure, sensuality, self-seduction, and making these things more of a spiritual practice and a lifestyle than just a way to recover from or reward oneself for the daily grind. And sometimes self-love can be really romantic and seductive and yummy and beauty-filled. And then sometimes self-love looks a little bit different. And today, what we're going to be talking about is using some of our tools of pleasure, sensuality, and our loving inner voice to soothe ourselves when life and our own being and body might feel akin to an itchy wool sweater that you can't take off. As I had the idea for this episode, it was during a time where I was feeling depressed, and I was with my mom and I was at a show, and it was one of those moments where all of my needs were being met. I felt beautiful. I had dressed up for the show. I was experiencing art that was riveting me. My mom, the person that I love the most in the world, was seated next to me. We're in this beautiful theater. And it was one of those moments where I was like, God, there's so much beauty happening in my life right now. And yet there felt like this foggy mist and this itchy film between me and my ability to be present and actually receive it and enjoy it. And in the past, my method for coping with that or trying to change how I feel would be like, what's wrong with you? Look at everything that you have to be grateful for, and you can hear the inflection in my voice is that of a Catholic nun school teacher, of which I have many in my past, and ordering myself around to feel differently. And as I've gotten older and dealt with depression and mental illness and just the fluctuating and circular nature of one's mood, I've learned some different skills and picked up some different tools along the way that are more effective and are more kind and are more sustainable. Because something that I've learned about myself is that being depressed, being sad, being down is something that I will need to interface with for the rest of my life, not just because I'm someone who identifies as recovering from complex trauma and the depression that can sometimes be a side effect of that, but also because this is part of the human experience. And so the question I find becomes not, how can I take this away and make sure it never happens again? But instead, what's a sustainable way that I can support my body and my system in feeling this fully, knowing that the only thing that's guaranteed is that it will change. And just like when your body has a cold, You might cancel your day and go to bed and sip tea and take herbs. You're not necessarily making the cold go away. You're just giving your body's natural healing capacity more of what it needs to do what it knows how to do. And I find that it's similar with the mind. And so, again, today's tools are not about removing depression or changing the way that you feel per se, but they are a balm for the mind that when it is depressed or sad or down is just a part of the body in need of some support in its healing process. And so that's going to be our gems for today, is how to love yourself in these moments where self-love is not so much a romantic first 3 months honeymoon period, but it's more your partner of 13 years clipping their toenails in bed. And you have to say, okay, sweetheart, I love you, but I really don't like you right now. And yet, hang in there. And romantic love with the self, I think, is a very undervalued and understudied aspect of the relationship with oneself. And so today's episode is going to focus more on some of the gritty, intimate aspects of self-love when things don't feel romantic, happy, and perfect. But before we dive into those, I do want to tell you, I gave a little hint towards this in last week's episode, that on Valentine's Day, we are celebrating. Cupid and the universe have collaborated to have our 100th episode happen and fall on Valentine's Day. And in honor of our 100th episode, I am throwing a party called Enamored, a self-love come to your senses celebration. And at this party, we are going to celebrate 100 episodes in the community that has been created here at the podcast. But also, we are going to celebrate this day that is devoted to the arts of romance and seduction and sensuality in a way that reimagines our relationship to them and reclaims their pleasures as our own. There is going to be a guest performance by none other than the one and only Joe Boobs Weldon, who is one of the teachers who started my career, almost 20 years ago, 17 years ago, in a musty and beautiful Times Square dance studio when she taught me how to fan dance. So we are going to be celebrating with burlesque. We are going to have prizes awarded at the party from Pound Jewelry, Olivine Atelier Fragrance, coaching sessions with me, and a grand prize of a gorgeous Miranda Wildman original painting that, I am so excited and so envious of the person who wins this prize. I can't wait for you to see it. And in order to celebrate and build up the anticipation, which is its own kind of pleasure, there is also a game where you can enter to win these prizes. So if you would like to come and be my guest and be ravished and lavished at our celebration, head to schoolofsensualliving.com/party and sign up to join us for Enamour, and also learn more about how you can participate in order to win one of these fabulous celebratory prizes. So let's dive in to today's gems. Today's gems are intended to guide you towards a balm for those moments where your mind is feeling decidedly out of order, like a bathroom where this the bathroom is just out of order, your mind, your emotions, all of those things. And before we start, one thing I always like to remind you is that everything that's shared here on the podcast is an invitation. And I encourage you to hold each of these gems up to the light of your own experience to see if and how it resonates for you and your body. And the first, around bringing some soothing balm to your heart and mind when it's struggling, is actually less about something you might put in, and it's more about removing the things that are causing the irritation. And for me, what I notice is that my mental state is often directly proportionate to the amount of screen time I have spent on social media. And so it's really common knowledge, like, oh, if you want to feel better, don't be on your phone as much. And I want to acknowledge that it's not that simple. But in those moments when you are feeling depressed or down, a gentle suggestion that I would offer is that scrolling puts pressure on the most vulnerable parts of your brain and your survival system, which is namely your system of comparison. I was reflecting recently on growing up, reading 17 magazine and YM magazine. Anybody remember the YM Embarrassing Moments column? That was my favorite. And I remember looking at pictures and images and feeling comparison for sure, but also having this awareness that these were celebrities in professional photo shoots and also imagined images like, I don't know, the movie She's All That. And, these were movies like it was a fake world. There was this baseline understanding that this model I was seeing before me was probably airbrushed and styled, et cetera, et cetera. And when it comes to your own mental state and social media, the level of distortion that I find is created in myself and others around comparing one's life to these also airbrushed, filtered, edited, censored things that we see in the lives of people we know is really just catastrophic for self-esteem. And so this is, a much bigger topic and is not as simple as just don't go on your phone as much. But what I would invite you to consider is that when you're in a down or a depressed state, social media can actually be a form of self-harm. There's all types of ways to harm oneself in order to create the distraction of alternative pain, pain that is acute and is a distraction from some of the deeper pain. So some examples might be harming your physical body, or addiction is a form of self-harm. I think about when I was a teenager and I was bulimic, it was like the real wound was my feeling of separateness and lack of belonging and shame. But the wound that got everybody's attention was going in the bathroom and throwing up my lunch, And it also gave me a symptom to focus on, to distract from the deeper aspects of the pain that at that time in my life were just not something I had any control over. And so once again, something that brings me a lot of comfort is the idea that everything is either poison or medicine, depending on how we relate to it. And I would say that for me, when I'm in a depressed state, I am not able to interface with social media in a way that feels like medicine at all. And for you, it might be something different. It might be alcohol or nicotine or marijuana or certain people that you're around or certain behaviors. But if we just start really simply with something that is such a part of our day to day, one thing to consider in order to reduce the inflammation so that Balm can do its work is to remove one of the things that might be contributing to the inflammation. And the use of social media might be a great place to start. I'll just close this gem by saying that when I was at that show, it had been about an hour and a half drive to the theater, and my mom was driving, and so I was flipping my phone the whole time. And I noticed when we sat down, I turned off my phone, and at first, there was that incredibly uncomfortable transition from being on my phone to being in real life and feeling that urge to just go back to scrolling. And after 2 hours of sitting in the theater, my vision cleared, my ability to be present shifted, and I felt like, oh God, I don't want to turn on my phone. Like I just so clearly in that moment saw the correlation between my level of irritability and the use of my phone. And if you're like me, your mind might go to, okay, I'm going to do a 7-day phone cleanse and get all the apps that restrict my use and, all this strategy about how to change the behavior. And great, love you, strategic mind. You can be so helpful. And that strategic mind is most helpful when we're in a more relaxed, embodied, emotionally deepened state. And so a place to start might just be like, okay, 1 hour, I'm going to turn this bugger off and I'm going to ride through that discomfort in the first 15 to 20 minutes. And I'm going to occupy myself with other things that aren't looking at a screen and see how I feel in 1 hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, whatever feels right for you. Simple is sustainable. And that kind of leads us into our next gem, which actually has to do with that strategic mind. So I notice that when I am in a state of depression or anxiety, my strategic mind just really shines like a diamond, and it loves to choreograph and create all of these plans for the future and all of these things that I need to do or should do, as well as writing a thesis on my regrets of the past and the urgency that I have to do these things to make up for the 1 to 20 years of regrets that I hold and make up for lost time. And if you notice that that's happening for you, you're not alone. And the illusion that gets created in those moments is that I feel this way because I did these things or didn't do these things. And what I would urge you to reflect on is, what if those circular ways of thinking are not actually the cause of how you feel, but they're a symptom of something else that's going on in the body? And I know for myself, usually it has something to do with neglect of the basics. So I have a list of about 5 or 6 body basics that if one of these is off, you can expect the whole Jenga tower to eventually fall down. And they are water, sleep, movement, time with other people, and blood sugar. I feel like there was one other one in there somewhere, but for the moment anyway, those are the main body basics that I know if these are missing or neglected, it's pretty much a guarantee that I'm going to feel some sort of way. And once again, it's really common. I can hear it already in my own restrictive, strategic mind of, okay, we're going to go to bed tonight at 9:00. And, I'm going to buy one of those self-timed water bottles, whatever. And once again, I'm just going to invite a breath for myself and for you and reiterate that statement that what is simple is sustainable. And so maybe you start with just a glass of water right now. And maybe instead of the pressure to go to body pump followed by 90 minutes of restorative yoga, you start with 10 jumping jacks. And you keep it so simple because a depressed mind has a lot to manage. And it's usually the pressure and the expectation of needing to do so much in order to be perfect and to make yourself feel a certain way that is the depression eating its own tail. And one simple intervention, like turning off your phone at night and picking up a book instead, just again, like the Jenga tower, it's like that has the power to change a lot. Maybe not every single little last thing, but it does have the power to change a lot. So simple is sustainable. And the final gem for this episode was a little bit hard to decide upon because I feel like I have this whole arsenal of tools and methods and worksheets and, practices that I turn towards regularly to floss my own brain. But the most embodied, most undeniable way to shift how I feel personally, I find always comes back to adorning my body and leaving the house. So again, this is part of my ritual. For you, if you go into an office every day, staying at home in your Snuggies might be the absolute pinnacle of self-care. But for me, because I work from home, the opportunity to get dressed and to have that co-regulation of seeing people and people seeing me is just less frequent in my life. And for years, I did go to an office and I got dressed every day. And I used to be a corporate trainer, so I would get coiffed and stand in front of a room of 300 people teaching about skincare for 6 hours. And, I find that when one is depressed, just that word depressed, it's like there is a deactivation and a slowing down to stagnancy. And so in order to lift out of that very down-regulated kind of state, there needs to be some kind of healthy stimulation of energy in order to bring the mood and the energy and just the activity in the body and the mind back up to baseline. And there's a lot of different ways that you can do that. And from a sensual living, come to your senses perspective, this is where beauty becomes a balm. I remember once being in the hospital during a scary experience around my health and, using the hospital shampoo and the hospital towels and all of that, and requesting that a friend drop off a care package with some of my favorite beauty products. And oh my God, the restoration of dignity that I felt when I could use my aromatherapy and have a soft towel and put on a soft robe. It was like the difference between walking through the world alone and walking through the world with my fairy godmother on my shoulder, guiding my way. For me, beauty, and it doesn't have to be complicated. It could be something as simple as a little lavender oil on the feet at night. Beauty is one of the fastest portals of connecting to a power greater than myself. And sometimes if I know I need to do something, like go to an exercise class to raise my mood up from that depressed state, and I know I really don't want to go, I will do my hair and I'll put on a cute outfit to work out in, and I'll really tend to my beauty, because I find for myself that when I am depressed, walking around in the world, I feel invisible. Like there are times where I'm surprised people can even see me or recognize me, because I feel so just invisible. And there's something about adornment and my own willingness to sink my little fingernails into the earth and start to crawl out of that state through beauty and adornment and making myself a little bit more visible. That really provides a balm for my mind and my heart. And I encourage you, if this resonates or causes your energy to tingle and prickle, I encourage you to explore that avenue to see if that's true for you too. So thank you so much for listening. And wherever you are in your path of mental health and mood regulation, I am sending you so much love and so much healing and so much balm exactly where you are. And I invite you to come and meet some of your Come to Your Senses fellows. I would be so delighted to enjoy your presence, no matter how visible or invisible you feel, at our upcoming Enamour Valentine's Day Come to Your Senses self-love celebration. To RSVP and claim your free seat, go to schoolofsensualliving.com/party. It will be recorded, and you will also see and receive instructions on how to participate in the game to win one of our fabulous prizes. So again, thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, please rate, review, and subscribe. And I will see you next week. Ciao. For coaching, classes, and community in creating a lifestyle of embodiment, head to schoolofsensualliving.com. There you'll find a free video series on how to reduce anxiety and intercept the stress response through powerful, confident body language. Head to schoolofsensualliving.com/confidence to watch your first video today.